There's no doubt that Carl Craig is one of the more charismatic inhabitants of the electronic music world. Since many years, he's constantly pushed the standards with his productions, and there's no end in sight. Even his remixes are actually seen as legendary works of art, and his remix of the Junior Boys track Like a Child actually got him nominated for a Grammy Award. From earlier songs like At Les or Desire that he made under the alias 69, it was clear even then that for Carl, soundtracks and classical music were not merely a source of inspiration. Thus, it's hardly surprising that he's also creatively active in the area that crosses over from classical to electronic music. We took the opportunity to go and meet him in Paris, where he was busy with a recording session as part of his Versus project.
Well, classical music has always been a challenge to me. Recompose was the first to be released of my journey with classical music. The Versus project actually was thought about maybe 2 years before Recomposed actually came out. So there have been plans of doing this for quite a while, to do Versus for quite a while, and you know, from the time that I used to work with Derek May, we would sit on the floor of his apartment in front of all the gear, and we just talk about how we wanted to make soundtracks, and you know, we talk about the soundtracks that we loved and the mood and everything concerning doing such a thing. And so, of course, with the traditional sense of soundtracks, it all comes down to the orchestra, and then it comes down to the sound design. And those are two things that I have always been really interested in. So why not take those steps to reinterpret my music in a very classic way. I've done it all sorts of ways electronically, so you know, it's just the next steps. I think in some ways I am a control freak. I'm an ideas man more than anything. I think if I wasn't doing music, I'd probably be in advertising or something, you know. And anything that would be creative in that way, I can't say that I'm the best team player, because I've always made a lot of music on my own, and I've always done a lot of things on my own in that sense. But in relation to, say, the Versus project that we're working on, I can't be a control freak. You know, it's just not possible, because, you know, I have excellent people that know what the fuck they're doing in their own position. So, you know, Francois, the conductor, I can't conduct these guys, you know. I don't have enough experience to, so I have to let Francois does what he does and give him free rein to do it in order for him to do the best job that he can. You know, if I'm breathing down his neck telling him, no, that's not right, you know, you're doing this shit wrong, you know, then basically ends up with an unhappy camper who's the boss of the whole fucking orchestra, you know. So I have to give him free rein and trust his vision. The same with Francesco doing the arrangements. You know, we collaborated on the arrangements, but in a very loose way, you know. So we discussed what songs that he felt would be good, and we discussed what songs I felt would be good, and we came with a happy medium. I let him go off and do his thing. He came back, I listened, said, I like this, I don't like that, whatever, and then it's on to, you know, to making it happen. making timeless material, I think that you have to appreciate timeless material. And, you know, I appreciate all sorts of music. I'm not just a guy who's into electronic music and that's it. I find that's too restrictive, and I'm not a restrictive guy. You know, I grew up in the 70s, and you know, the whole sound of the radio at that time was something that was very special and warm, you know, with FM radio, FM versus AM or whatever. So, you know, hearing things that might be corny at the time still had sort of a timeless sound to it because it was on FM radio, you know? It's like when you grow up with vinyl and you put the needle on the record, there's that sound that comes from that in comparison to when you listen to an MP3. And that sound is something that a lot of people relate to, especially that are close to the time of growing up before the 90s. When you grew up in the 90s, it was only compact disc. So you have another source of reference to what is believed to be timeless for that generation. For my generation, it's vinyl, it's FM radio. I loved going into elevators and there would be the look of love is in your eyes, you know, and that sound of orchestra behind Dusty Springfield, or, you know, or the sound of the horns in a war record like Lowrider or The World is a Ghetto or something like that. That's a timeless thing to me. And, you know, those types of sounds, you know, always resonated with me, you know, so whether it was some type of classical pop thing, or if it was a funk thing, Parliament Funkadelic, I mean, timeless music, you know, David Bowie, when he was doing Young Americans and Fame and that kind of stuff is timeless to me. So taking those influences, I translated them into my music, which any songwriter or musician or producer is going to do. And I think with taking those influences, my first objective was to make music that I thought was fun, and the second that would stand the test of time. My arrangements are based on techniques of how I learned how to mix. Arrangement and concept to most people means the same thing as putting sheet music right in front of you. So the sheet music says start at bar 1 and end at bar 88, and that's the song, that's it. You don't do shit else, you know? So because you have arrangement windows in Logic and arrangement windows in Ableton, people deal with arrangement based on arranging in the window. So it's like, okay, bar 1 starts here, and then by bar 17, the kick drum's gonna come in. And by bar 24, the bass line's gonna come in. And then by bar, you know, whatever, the kick drum drops out. And it's like a very calculated way of dealing with it. When I learned to mix using mute buttons on a console, and then you just do takes. So everything's running, you bring in what you want when you feel it, and you mute whatever you don't need whenever you feel it. And then you come back to the takes, and then you cut them and you put them together in an arrangement. So it's not ever thinking like, okay, it's gonna be calculated at this point. It's saying, okay, it feels right.
Sorry?
We're almost there.
Yes.
Basically, when I did this, I was probably thinking about a girl. You know, I was probably in love with somebody that I couldn't have. That's why I call it desire, you know? So it's that thing that should kind of come out in that solo where it's like, you know, that longing and that desire. You know, I don't know if you can remember a time when maybe there was somebody that you wanted but you couldn't have, your best friend's girl or something like that. But like, you know, you're sitting there and you're just thinking about this person, and you know, so it shouldn't be about the notes. It should be about the emotion that goes into it. You know.
So don't hesitate to warm the. Hein? Ouais, ta carte blanche.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
I'm hearing music a lot more than I am seeing it. I used to know how to read music, and if I'm forced to do it, then I can do it. But like this session with working with the orchestra, I'm listening in comparison to reading.
That was very good.
Ouais.
Are you okay? Is he okay over there?
You inspired him.
Is he crying?
No.
Because if he's crying, that's what I wanted. Are you crying? Are you crying?
Il croit que tu pleures, c'est pour ça qu'il est content.
That was a great job.
My concept of making music is always an incidental situation. So it's anytime that I have ever driven home thinking of a bass line and I got to get to the keyboard and I start messing around with it, I always throw that idea away and just start all over again. And that's inevitably what it comes down to, is that there's a riff that I just screw around with ideas, and then a riff will come, and then I'll expand from that riff. Oh, that sounds good, and then I'll expand from it. Or, you know, maybe it's a riff that needs to be looped, and then from that loop, it'll develop into something else.
That's my blue steel look. It's like in Zoolander.
I think my formula to just staying consistent is to be consistent, you know. What happens a lot within the music industry is that you can have a big hit and you can live off that hit for a long time. And there have been a lot of people who have lost their way because of that, and they're always trying to make a better hit than the last one that they had. Sometimes you just get involved in the party, you know, and the party becomes more important than making new music, you know, and that's very easy to lose track, especially nowadays that DJing is the main line, but bands have had it for 20, 30, 40 years before before DJing was even thought of, you know? So sometimes it's alcohol and drugs, and you know, so it just depends on the situation. And sometimes people only have a limited amount of time creatively that they can actually put in their lifetime. So, you know, it's different strokes for different folks and how they deal with it. For me, it's just something that I kind of lust for, you know, and I love music, you know, that's what I lust for. My clearest vision for my music is to always go forward, to always progress somehow musically, you know, as a writer, as a producer, as a performer. I think just because we all get older doesn't mean that we can't get better, you know. I'm not one to sit in a room, it's called shedding in the jazz industry, just sitting there and just playing the same riffs over and over and over again until I get it perfect, you know. I'm one that tries to find a way to get better, but with new ideas coming constantly, you know. So I don't bore myself.